So here we go, episode 7, Russell, of the Property Pulse podcast. And feedback from last week has been interesting. There's been lots of blowing up on our interview with Tyrone Ash, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought there were some amazing insights there.
I think we asked questions of him and got more out of him than anybody has ever asked.
Wow. So,
bold claim.
For episode 7, welcome Charlie Lamdin, the best agent.
Hang on, stop there a second. This needs a bigger intro, I think. Hang on, this is me, Russell Quirk, and him, Charlie Lamdin. So many of you that have been hovering around Twitter and LinkedIn and goodness knows where else would have seen probably that over the last 2 years, 3 years, I think it's fair to say that Charlie and I have been at each other's throats. Now, the qualification is we are actually friends, right? We do actually like each other. It's just that he's wrong. And it's fine to have friends that are wrong, I think. You know, you just have to try and steer them in the right direction, guide them back to reality, and that is what we're going to do over the next 30 minutes.
Well, before we go there, I think for our audience who maybe aren't aware of your relationship, friendship and contradictory terms, let's hear a little bit about your journey, Charlie, and what brings you as a figurehead in the property world. Be able to voice those opinions that Russell is going to challenge. So
Yes.
Tell us about your journey.
Well, very briefly, I spent about 5 years as a landlord, an investor landlord in the 90s. Golden years they were. I actually got bored of that quite quickly, and I'm one of those people that sort of cursed with the desire to make a difference, not just make money. So I decided, and I could see that moving house was a very painful process for everyone, and then I quite quickly learned that it was actually a painful process for agents as well. So in the early 2000s, I started out by providing. I thought no one needs agents. The internet's here. Don't need agents anymore.
I kind of thought that too for a period of time. Yeah.
So, and I very quickly learned that was massively misguided and wrong. And I started selling the tech that I built, which is a one-stop photography, floor plan and virtual tour service to agents in London. And very quickly realised that we were the first, so our photographers would go around to these houses in London to shoot them, measure them up and do a virtual tour. Very quickly learnt from the agents about the criticality of that client's first experience, right? They've just instructed the agent. Their very first experience that this vendor had of that agent was our service. Mm-hmm. So immediately I was in the deep end of really what matters to agents. Right? We've just won this instruction. We've been fighting for it for months. Don't cock it up. And from there we went on to providing actual websites to agents because in those days...
And when was this, sorry? Like late 90s,
2000.
early 2000s? Yeah. 2000, as the internet was kind of really being
my
born.
first client was a countrywide brand, Farron Sataria.
Oh, yes, yeah,
right,
yeah.
in London.
Great brand.
They were a fantastic brand. And very quickly, in the space of just a couple of years, we had like 100 agents in London, 100 different brands in London using... Not brands, branches, 100 branches using us, including people like Hamptons and Douglas and Gordon. And I was, I was in my late 20s at this point, early 30s. And I learned, I spent all my day, like 5 days a week, I was out with clients, meeting, either pitching new clients or seeing existing clients. And I got to learn, because back in those days, there was no tech that was actually any good at making a real difference. And I could see what they needed and what they wanted. And I could also see from a mover's point of view, having bought and sold a few properties myself. And I designed and built... I didn't build it myself. I couldn't write a line of code to save my life, but I spec'd and led the building of the first ever web-based CRM for agents.
Which is where we first met.
Yes, although that was the second one I built.
The second one, okay.
And the first one, so Dexter's was a client when they had just 5 branches. Right. I remember Dexter's and Lauristons used to be at each other's throats, and then there was a bit of a downturn in the early 2000s, and I watched what happened as they reacted differently, and Lauristons kind of faded away a bit, and Dexter's just took off. So I had corporate clients, I had small, aggressive, independent agents as clients, I had one-man bands as clients, and it grew very quickly from there until I had estate agency clients of every description under the sun, all over the country, not using the photo and floor plan, that was just in London, but using the software, actually for about 5 years also in Australia. So I spent a lot of time, McGrath, which is the biggest agent in Sydney, was a client, and John McGrath became a good friend. And I was learning so much. I was fascinated to see what agency was all about. And I started working with amazing forward-thinking agents, because back in those days, agents weren't embracing tech very much. So the clients that we got were sort of the forward-thinking ones.
Arguably, they're still not. to the extent that they should be.
Look, how low was the bar, right? I had someone that had 0 experience in tech, and I designed and built the first CRM system that Countrywide and Dexter started using, and Douglas and Gordon, that was just turbocharging their business.
And what happened? I mean, that should have made you a billionaire, Charlie.
shareholder battles, investor battles, clients trying to sue me to take over the software because they thought it was going to revolutionise the
And
country.
lack of adoption, presumably.
No.
In terms of agents not wanting to take on technology.
No, we were growing very, very fast. So the products were great.
And what was it called? What was the name
So
of
the
the
first one was called Datography.
Right.
And I was the founder of that and the largest shareholder. I got 16 investors in. We had a board of 8 people. I had amazing non-execs on that board. And it was growing so fast that they decided to fire me and kick me out.
Why? If you're at the helm of a successful business, why would they kick you out?
So we had this non-executive chairman who was a guy who'd sold out a big call center business, and he was an amazing mentor. And he said, Charlie, your underlying business is profitable, but you've got all these directors on a board taking salaries. None of them know it.
And it's the old adage, I don't know if you watch Silicon Valley, where they say to a particular founder, congratulations, you've made this business so successful that it's outgrown you. We don't need you anymore. Bye.
So
happened.
what actually happened was this chairman said to me, you've got a viable business, but it's not making any money because literally you're being drained of money by all these big salaries that people that aren't involved in your operations. So he said, you've got to make a decision what you're going to do. I said, well, then we've got to get rid of everyone that's not contributing to the growth of the company. So I said to these, I think, quite a few of them.
What, and you thought that you were one of them?
No, I wasn't one of them. And they all got together, and one of my, the second biggest partner there was an ex-Foxtons guy who's a school friend of mine, and he and I together were more than 50%. But they, after a few months, managed to turn him against me. And so they slung me out. And a year later, I started up in competition and then started to win accounts that I couldn't in the first company. I won Savills, Knight Frank, Hamptons, all the big brands. We were the only fully approved digital marketing service provider for all these companies. And you know what they did? My old partners came up to me, we made a big mistake. You were the beating heart of that business. Can we put the new businesses together?
All right. Okay.
I said, if I've got controlling shareholding, that'd be great. But no, obviously you can't have that. So why would I put myself back in the position where you can just fire me again and then go, oh, whoops. So basically, it was going really well. We had Ed Williams from Rightmove around in our offices,
the former CEO,
talking to us about the tech that we built. And this is my vision right from the start, which is they said if there's a big national property site with a CRM system built into it, that's the obvious no-brainer for the whole industry. And I said, yeah, I agree. And then shortly after that, they fired me. So that's what went wrong. It was almost doing too well.
The perils of taking on investment and investors that end up
I
controlling the business.
I've been let down by every single one of the approximately 16 investors I've had, including the one that was the best one, because he died. Yeah. Right, the best investor I had, who was chairman of Ogilvy and Mather Europe, who was brilliant.
Just kind of wasn't his fault.
He died. Selfish.
How inconsiderate.
Yeah. So what happened as a consequence? Are those businesses now flying without you or not?
No. So no. I've definitely got more failed businesses to my name than anyone I know.
Badge of honour, mate.
I've got the scars. I've got the lessons, and that is why Best Agent has no investors.
So what is Best Agent?
It is.
If you're struggling to explain it,
for the same reason that people couldn't explain what Airbnb and Uber were when they first came along, no one understood what they were.
So what's the elevator pitch?
A fairer marketplace where the right people make money and it's easier to move.
Yeah, but what do you mean the right people? Is it Get Agent re-skinned?
Not at all. Absolutely not at all. Get Agent continues to make everything worse.
Do they?
Yes.
Well, I think it's a great business.
It might be a good business. It's not fixing anything. It's yet another.
It's democratising estate agencies.
No, it isn't.
In terms of the best agent to choose for your particular circumstances.
But
that's what
you guys both know that two different vendors of the same property, like imagine a sliding doors moment, right? You've got identical property. In one reality, you've got vendor A, and in another one, you've got vendor B. The right agent for those guys will be a different person. It'll be whoever is the best working relationship.
Yeah, but there have to be fundamentals around. So look, it's definitely true to say that you put 10 vendors in a room with 100 agents, they're all going to gravitate towards whether it's personality, experience, or whatever. But you have to have some fundamentals in order to choose, which are things like speed of sale, price achieved, and percentage of asking price.
But Get Agent only gives you the averages,
and it gives you a head start, gives you a leg up.
It might. But listen, if you came down to a choice of two guys that you liked equally, then maybe the data they provide you would be the thing that made the difference. But it's not.
But it also gives the agent business that they wouldn't otherwise have got, potentially. So it's good for the agent.
Well, that's exactly what I do. Now, so the difference between me and Get Agent is that Best Agent allows every single agent, even a brand new startup, an equal opportunity to pitch a vendor.
Right.
With
so
no
how does
money
it
up
work?
front.
How does it work?
I was going to get back to the.
But this is only
workings,
one
because-
aspect of it. So let me just say, right.
Let's
So,
get back to the elevator.
best agent
But
property.
it's not an elevator that's going up and down through 100 floors. It's only about 5 or 6 floors. Elevator pitch.
If I'm right, and I won't know if I'm right until this has either succeeded or failed, right? But if I'm right, then agents will eventually go, good agents, right? Ones that don't deliberately lie to people to make money at the expense of that vendor's journey,
Right.
okay, will thank me and go, thank you, this is what we always wanted. We wanted a fairer marketplace where agents won business for the right reasons,
Yeah, but
not
how?
because
I'm
they...
not getting the how. How does it work?
Let me say the what first, and then I'll give you the how, because without that what, the how doesn't make sense, right? The what is a completely level playing field that is not dominated and controlled by the ones with the biggest pockets. Okay, so now you've got, let me give you London, for example, right? So in London, you've got Foxtons, Dexters, and until recently, Kinleys were 3 separate businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Foxtons and Dexters, roughly speaking, according to 20 EA's data,
20 CI, yeah.
was selling 1 in 3 of the properties they listed. Right, so as a vendor with Foxtons or Dexters, you had a 1 in 3 chance of actually selling, and Kinleys were doing double that, almost 2 in 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the public doesn't know that, and Get Agent doesn't tell you that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So vendors are still going to Dexters and going to Foxtons, and who are arguably the worst of the overvaluers, and locking
Is
you
it
into
because the
long-storage
likes of
contract.
Foxtons and Dexters might actually not be selling as much as a percentage, but are getting a higher price for those they do sell?
I don't know. I don't know if that's the case or not. But from what I can see, the overvaluing there is the worst. Now, my best mates out of
Yeah,
school...
but hang on, let's just qualify. It's not just Foxtons and Dexters.
Oh, no.
If at all, I think, and you and I rarely agree on something here,
Yeah.
the propensity for agents in the UK to, I would say, fraudulently overvalue properties and hoodwink sellers into
win the
going with them,
instruction.
and then sign them up on a 16-week sole agency.
26 weeks.
It's endemic, and it is not only wrong, I think it's fraudulent, and it's happening across the industry. Independents, corporates.
Yep.
I would say it's more common than it isn't common.
Oh, absolutely, and it's killing the industry. I had a very prominent, well-known independent agent who's a member of Property Mark board saying, overvaluing is the death of estate agency.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're quite right. They're not the only. They're not, but they are arguably, and in my opinion, some of the worst. Now, I happen to know because my best mates out of school went and worked in Foxtons in the 90s when it was just 5 branches. And I can remember hearing over a pint in the pub after work each day about exactly
No, but
what
hang
they
on,
were being told to do.
That's 30 years ago. That's not necessarily representative of the,
but
of the
this
business.
is
Has a very
no.
bad
But
business.
what happened is, because I saw it at the coalface, right? What happened was that Foxton's valuations managers, it's not the same today. What I'm about to say is about what happened to Foxtons in the 90s. I'm not saying it's the same now, but it is a culture that Guy Gittins was part of in the early 2000s, right? When he was there just as an employee and valuation manager.
And Guy's obviously not here yet, not on this episode,
No,
to defend
but-
himself. But okay, so
Sorry, I really hope that Guy's old-fashioned approach to it will improve their success ratio for their clients.
I have no doubt, and it's happening already.
Yeah.
In terms of the
Because
culture that he's bringing back into
he's a
Foxtons.
dyed-in-the-wool, it runs in his veins, he's an agent.
Yep.
Right? And that's good for Foxtons and good, I think, for the
And
industry.
having been up to Chiswick Park, it's incredibly impressive.
No, but the
Incredibly
problem is,
impressive.
right, you and I agree on this, overvaluing is endemic. And I actually think that overvaluing makes it harder to sell properties.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it harder to get a proper fee because people are just competing on valuation and then fee. So it's like shooting yourself in both feet.
It's a race to the bottom.
Right?
Yeah, I'm not going to sell
And
it,
the
and even
only
if I do, I'm
agents-
going to get a lower fee.
Yeah.
This elevator is not reaching where we want to reach yet,
And
so
the
I want to
only-
bring us right
Sorry,
back.
can I just finish? The only agents that can afford to list 2/3 of properties they won't sell at low fees are the ones making money elsewhere. And that's where you get a real conflict of interest that could be fraudulent, where you've got an agent acting for a seller, where the agent's interest is actually to get a buyer with a mortgage to buy that property, not a cash buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And outside London, that's a really, really bad problem with a lot of big agents.
Yeah.
Sorry, so
Back to the elevator
Yes.
pitch, please, because our audience will not be fully aware of
Okay.
your full background and the best agent. So I really want to understand. I think most of them will understand Get Agent. Agents that I deal with.
I think
like
Charlie's
Get Agent.
stalling because he doesn't want to get onto the house price debate.
We're going to
Not
get
at
onto the
all.
house
No,
price
I'm dying to
debate.
get onto that.
Yeah,
It's really important
Yeah.
because that's one of the symptoms of overvaluing.
So what's the,
Right.
in a nutshell, what does best agent do?
Makes it easier to move house and makes it easier for the right agents to win instructions rather than the ones.
And is
who
it
can afford the
consumer
best
facing,
property.
not industry facing? So
It's
the
both.
consumer comes across your website, is able then to select the best agent, hence the name,
They video their house, I think I read. So they video their house and send
No,
it.
sorry. So we provide live video. So basically it allows sellers to have a video conversation with an agent before they divulge their contact information.
Okay.
So we're giving movers more control over their data and their privacy, and allowing them, from the safety of their own home, before they invite someone into their home, to have a video discussion with the agents that respond. So we send out to 20 of the nearest agents, right? There's no criteria other than are they geographically the 20 closest agents to that vendor's property.
So it's a Zoom pitch before you have to commit to saying who you are.
Correct.
And you take a clip.
No. So we charge the instructed agent. So the difference between Get Agent and us. So Get Agent gets paid on sale.
On completion, on success.
Yep.
Yeah.
We want to discourage agents who are listing properties they aren't confident of selling. So we charge on instruction, but we charge 1/10 of what Get Agent charges.
But you're charging whether they overvalue or not, because you're getting paid on
So
instruction.
So what was happening is
But how
the
does
agents who
that-
don't
Like the
overvalue.
upfront fees of estate
Yes,
agents.
but
No,
how
hang on a
does that
second.
work to stop overvaluing?
Because an agent that lists a property they're not confident of selling doesn't want to pay an upfront fee. An agent who's listed knowing that they can sell it is very happy and thinks that our commission is tiny.
But wouldn't it be a better incentive for you, for the agent and the consumer if they were paid a larger percentage on actual success?
No, because that doesn't counteract the problem of listing stuff you're not confident you can sell. So we've already had agents who've rung up and go, well, I don't want us to pay you now. I don't know if I'm going to sell a property. And I'm like, well, then don't take the instruction. Because we're here to help sellers avoid agents like you. Why are you even considering taking this instruction if you aren't confident you can sell it? And we've got agents who are very confident going, this is a no-brainer. This is
So
brilliant.
if it's a £5,000 fee, what am I paying you as an agent?
We
put
charge
me off or
20 quid per 100 grand of asking price.
Okay.
So for a 250 grand instruction, it's 50 quid.
You're not getting rich on that, Charlie Lamdin, are you?
I don't want that to be a barrier to entry. I want that to be an absolute non-discussion. And for agents who think that that's
Are you doing this to be benevolent?
no, I'm trying to get people to consider the concept and not worry about the price.
So we've gone.
So we also charge for applicant inquiries. So we've got a property site. We list all the
Okay.
properties, sales and lettings, 100%. Unlike like Rightmove is 90%. We list 100% of what we can find.
Okay.
Okay, and we send telephone leads are free, right? Because if someone sees your property as an agent and just rings the number, we haven't really added any value there. And seeing as we haven't charged you to list, and we've just listed everyone's properties whether they like it or not because it's public, we don't think charging for a phone lead is fair. But if the seller or the applicant wants to book a viewing, uses our online booking viewing service, and that makes the whole thing happen quicker and easier for the agent, and then we charge a tiny thing, and again, it's on the price of the property. So you're talking about 4 or 5 or 6 quid. And as an agent, it's pay per lead. So if you think it's a crap lead or a lead you don't want, just no thanks. But if it's a lead you do want, yes please. And it's so you're not paying a horrible subscription price.
And how much traction are you getting?
So far, not negligible, because we've got 3 parts to this wheel, right? There's the publicity part for the public to get enough traffic there.
Which you're good at. As an individual, personal brand, you
Yeah,
are.
and I want to bring
you get-
transparency to house prices, so we're going to come on to house prices.
Yeah.
By the Best Agent Public House Price Index, which is going to be contributed to by any members of the public who want to report their exchange price. So it's exchange prices on sales.
How do you know if they're telling the truth?
We don't, and we're going to be checking that. So when the land registry publishes that property, we can cross-reference it, and
6
we will
months
3
later.
months, is it?
we will
Six, isn't
we
it?
will
That's what's
publish the error rate if there is one. But so far, the people who are bothering to do it, I mean, if you want to go in there and put in fake stuff, we've got stuff that detects if it's an obvious.
Can I just make a note tomorrow? Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
But the point is that so far everyone that's contributing is there's no benefit to someone not putting in the true price. So we're getting a surprising mix of landlords, buyers, and sellers.
So sorry,
reporting
so
exchange
that's the
price.
first data point. So
Agents
Yeah.
who want to volunteer their exchange prices will get a contributor badge on their listings on Best Agent to show that they are someone working towards transparency.
Yep.
Conveyancers. Okay, I've got one large conveyancing firm that I work with, who I'm in discussions with about them providing all their exchange data. So we start to get into a steady stream of exchange prices being reported.
But to make it a proper bona fide index, and we're going to come onto this in terms of the many indexes that there are that relate to house prices, it has to have data contributed to it at scale. It can't just be 100 or 1,000.
Agreed. Which is why our target is to match the land registry sample size when they first publish.
Yeah, which is about 80 to 90,000 transactions.
When they first publish, this is one of the...
Oh, no, sorry, when they first publish, not ultimately when they revise it.
Because when they first publish, that's what hits the headlines.
Yes.
Right? And they're doing that. Like, for example, December, it was less than 6,000.
Yeah.
For the whole of the UK.
Yeah.
It's a
tiny sample,
which is why the ONS has just restated the last 3 years of their figures down.
But they're not the only index. Are we getting onto house prices now, are we?
No, can I finish just very... Yeah. So what we'll be doing is we will publish the full raw data set for anyone who wants it. So agents, in return for contributing to it, will get early access to it.
So will you publish it in press release form on a monthly basis, or
yes,
only privately to contributing agents?
So they will get it slightly earlier. So if you are a contributing agent, the whole idea is that they can use it to combat overvaluing.
But they can do that with the traditional indexes.
They haven't got exchange prices, up-to-date exchange prices anywhere.
Yeah, they have. The Halifax and the Nationwide have. They're showing mortgage approval prices. Numbers.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but there's no difference. There's maybe a tiny percentage, not even a percentage of difference between those mortgage approval prices that then go on to be exchange prices. So when Halifax say, this is our basket of data, and these are the prices at which those mortgage approval applications are made, there is no difference between those, and 6 months later,
how do you know that?
Well, because it will be negative. Otherwise, what you're suggesting is that after the mortgage offer comes out, there's mass renegotiation of prices. That doesn't happen.
There aren't mass ones. There's two things. People change their minds. First-time buyers change their minds and pull out. No, it's not tiny.
It's tiny.
Okay, ask them for the number. Guess what? They don't answer it.
It's not meaningful.
Okay, their sample size.
So what I'm saying is that those indexes allow... Look, the problem with overvaluation is not because the agent doesn't have enough data, it's because they're lying to the vendor to try and hoodwink them into giving them the instruction. The data makes no difference.
Okay,
whatever the data says, those agents are still going to overvalue.
I'm here for the agents who want to work on the truth. And the problem I've got is all of my clients I had over those 20-something years of software were such great agents. They wanted to genuinely deliver a way better experience for their clients than other agents would. And eventually, after 20 years of doing the right thing, like struggling, and you know it's a struggle, right, for these guys, to be honest and retain integrity, and they did everything right. And at the end, they just go, I can't keep doing this anymore. It's got harder and harder because the big boys just got more and more tech, more and more lead gen, and we're not even getting invited in. Even though...
Can I just ask a question, Mr. Jervis? So Russell ran Spicer, well, you ran Hart.
Yeah, I know, that's where we met.
Which was the largest estate agency business in Europe.
Yeah.
Did you mind, I mean, hopefully you will be transparent about this. What does a big independent or a corporate, what are the conversations in that business around overvaluing, given that your agents back in the day would have been valuing how many thousands of properties on a monthly basis?
You've got the, I think it's quoted as chasing the KPI, and you hear that regularly now of people just chasing the KPI. So listing numbers, market share. But the ultimate thing that we judged businesses on, or the business on at that time, if you were a branch, was the profitability of their location.
Which is based on income from exchanges and completions.
So if you had just stacks of property sitting on the market, then you weren't going to make any money.
But do corporates look at it? Oh, it's a numbers game. If you overvalue a bit, as long as 25% of them go through, it's all right, or 30% or 20%.
That's exactly what they do.
We were based, at that time, probably 60% instruction to sale ratio.
Right.
Which would be pretty much the norm. I think during the COVID years, that went up to 80%, probably dropped again to 40%. And yeah, there would be... whether it had been overvalued or valued to the market at that point, it would then be, you've had that on for 4 weeks, it hasn't sold, it's either marketing or price. If it's price, you've got to go back and have that difficult conversation with the vendor that, you know, I told you this price, usually based on evidence. We were very evidence-based, so this is what's sold in the local area.
To me, there's a very...
Guide price is where I think things have gone wrong. This whole, look, I'm actually, to win an instruction, I'm going to tell you 800,000.
What, between two
we're going to
prices?
put you on at 800 to 900. So then you're giving that vendor the hope. 900 might be, but really the agent has then put the...
But you've been semi-honest with them in terms of it won't be that.
And that's probably where, you know, I see more of the...
It's not even a thing. Semi-honest is not honest.
Sorry, I didn't think this was going to be an argument between you two.
More of the overvalue. I tell you what I've done. I've told them 800, which I'm going to try and reduce the house to in 4 weeks' time when I'm not going to sell it.
But you're saying
wonder buyer.
You're saying that as an agent, you're doing that with the knowledge of saying to the consumer, we might have to walk back from this in 4 weeks' time.
We might have to come back to
Whereas the bigger problem, I think, which is where Charlie and I agree, is that you've got a lot of agents, whoever they are, corporates, independents, whatever, saying, I think it's X, or worse, saying to the seller, well, what do you want for it? And they say, well, my neighbour's just sold for 750, but mine's got a conservatory and new windows, so I think it's 850. And the agent, just like an idiot, nods their head and says, all right, go on then. Rather than qualifying it and just saying, well, look, based on the comparables, I'm sorry, in this market, your house is worth £725,000. The solution, surely, is to rip up and do away with, to outlaw sole agency agreements.
I agree 100%.
Oh my God. Seriously?
No, but here's where we disagree, because this brings us on to the point you and I always disagree on. Why do so many sellers have those ridiculous expectations? Because of the guff about how house prices are buoyant and going up and they never go down. So it's like we blame sellers for wanting too much money. Well, why do they want it? Because wherever they look, they will only see agents going, oh, it's brilliant, it's great, always up. And so to answer both of the points about overvaluing and why sellers got this in their head, right? Is back to the 90s. My mate, who at the time was the manager of the most successful office of Foxtons had at the time, which was Notting Hill,
That was their original office.
Yeah.
John Hunt gave them direct instructions. You tell the vendor whatever number they want to hear. I don't care what it has to be, as long as you come out with a signed sole agency agreement.
Okay. Look, again, may have been Foxtons
it was
years
so
and years and years ago. I
effective.
don't want this to be an attack on Foxtons.
I'm not attacking Foxtons. I'm saying that's where it started. And I can remember other clients of mine in London absolutely foaming at their mouth with rage that Foxtons were doing this because they didn't want to overvalue. And they were losing business to Foxtons hand over fist because this was such an effective process.
What's going to be interesting, before we let you have your debate, shall we call it, is that on the podcast later this month, we've got a large chain of estate agents, independent, 17.
Yeah.
First time we're having a representation of a big group of agents. So we'll be asking them about overvaluing, because I can see what you're saying to win the instruction, but there is no benefit of having
like punching
just
yourself
a
in the face.
load of property on the market.
Let's get into the meat and gravy of why you and I are sat in the same room for the first time in a while, actually. Although we did bump into each other at the Women in Estate Agency Conference, the three of us, and we said, hey, actually, look, because of our history, we need to get in a room and have this conversation. And that conversation is about house prices. So it's fair to say, I think, Russ, Charlie and I sit on opposite sides of the fence. I have said for years and years and years, in various forms, that house prices will not crash. I have said also, and I said this way back in, whenever it was, Charlie will probably know better than me, back in 21, 22, house prices would not drop in the next year or two, and so on. In contrast, and I'm sure you're going to correct me here, but I'm going to try and get this right. I'm not going to try and put words in your mouth. Charlie has said, particularly during 21 and 22, so 2021 and 2022, that house prices would fall by 35% from peak to trough. That was 2 years ago. Now, my contention is, and I feel that I'm not just right here, but that the data, the numbers, where we are today, sitting here in April 2024, based on what Charlie's been saying for the last 18 months about house prices dropping by a significant amount, call it a crash if you like, I would, others would. Charlie doesn't.
I haven't.
Charlie doesn't. Well, you would, but
I've always said a slide
regardless,
over however long it takes.
I think 35% drop in house prices could be constituted as a crash, because that would be twice as much as has ever happened in history.
How long it takes.
In history. Right. Well, yes. So the timeline is, of course, important, but obviously what you can't do is keep moving the goalposts so that it suits you in terms of saying, well, this might happen.
I've never been confident.
I've
never been confident on the timeline.
No, okay. So the timeline that you have put out there, and I did check this morning, and I've screenshotted it just in case we're going to argue about it, was that in 2022 you said that would be the peak, and that by 2025 house prices would have dropped by 35%. House prices are broadly the same now as they were in 2022. So when does that 35% start happening, Charlie? Because that crash ain't happening. It hasn't happened.
House prices are broadly the same?
Yes, they are. According to the ONS, yes. House prices are broadly the same now as they were in 2022.
Well, wasn't it?
So
Halifax?
look,
Sorry. Not house prices, the average according to their calculation method.
But what we should
which
talk
has
about,
been shown
let's
to
just
be
qualify. Let's just qualify. There are various indexes, right? So now some of us will only focus on one. Let's say the Office of National Statistics, which is linked to the Land Registry, which lags. There are others of us that also include, because it's good practice to do so, those more up-to-date indexes from the likes of the Halifax and the Nationwide. We all agree that we won't use Rightmove because Rightmove is asking prices. Very important distinction. Ignore the Rightmove index. Asking prices are wholly irrelevant, really. All they do is measure seller sentiment rather than buyer appetite.
And set seller expectations, which is where the problem comes in.
But Charlie, come on. Look, let's be honest here. I know this is going to be tough for you. It's going to be very difficult for you to admit this. Is that I've been right all along. and you're not, because house prices haven't dropped,
Well,
and they're not going to. There's no sign of them dropping.
The other thing that you've been quite
Do you
vocal
actually
on,
believe that?
I know. I believe what I see in the data from ONS, Halifax, Nationwide. Now, I don't know.
You also, which I think you've got to give Charlie a chance to come back, is you believe the only reason Charlie is being controversial with those 35% headlines rather than 10 or 15 is to promote solely the best agent.
Yep. I think
Charlie.
I think it's PR.
Okay, so if that was the case, I would expect to lose my professional credibility.
But you might do. In fact, in
I
about
might
a
do.
year you're
Sorry,
going to.
And I've always said I could be wrong, and I've always said don't wait to buy ever. If you need a home and you found one that you can afford and you like it, buy it. Just don't overpay. That's been my message. I have never said to anyone, wait.
But overpay based on prices today, or what you're telling the
Overpay
prices will
based
be
on
in
your
a year's
personal
time.
circumstances, right? If you're a
Because you're saying in a year's
billionaire-
time, house prices will be
No, it's not a year's
35%
time.
lower.
No, okay, let me.
No, you are. You're saying in
no,
a year's
no, no.
time, 2025,
I've said,
house prices will be
I said
35% lower.
with regional variations from 15% to 50%. Okay?
Drops.
Yes.
Okay.
In nominal terms, not inflation. Inflation doesn't be even worse. I've said this is
It
what I
does for
think could
everything.
happen. Okay, so, and I've said it'll from the peak to the trough over however long that takes. People say, well, how long is it going to take? I said, I don't know.
No,
And
but
to
hang
start-
on. No, but you can't say that, because what you're
I
saying
can
is
say that.
no.
I can say
By
whatever I want.
2029,
I
by
can say-
2047, I think this will happen, because then you
Hey,
can never
well,
be
the-
proved
sorry,
wrong.
the
But you
longer-
have said 2025. You've said.
I've said that's my best guess.
2025. Yeah.
And is that
And
still
you're
your
wrong.
best guess?
Yes, it is. But I mean, if anything, it is happening at a snail's pace. But I think this
not
year
happening
is
at
looking
all.
worse. No,
It's
it
not
definitely
happening
is.
at all.
So the first thing you've got to understand the differences between all of the house price indices, the figures they publish, which they call the average house price, are not the average of house prices. They are a bizarrely complex calculation of estimates and assumptions. So, for example, the ONS does this thing where it creates this hybrid property, which is a makeup of a flat and a detached house and a semi and a terraced house, to call it the typical property. It doesn't exist in real life.
But Charlie,
and
it's all
wait,
re-
hang
it's all
on.
relative.
They also blend Northern Ireland and Scotland with England and Wales into one figure.
but it doesn't
Now,
matter.
It does matter.
Do you know why it doesn't matter?
I've let you have your say. Stum. Let me finish now, all right?
You're just digging the hole
no,
deeper.
No, you've got to
I'm
let
just
me
trying to
finish.
help you out.
You're not. Let me finish, okay? And then you can challenge anything I'm saying. So all the house price indices in a normal market, when there aren't lots of adverse, weird effects happening, are relatively reliable and do tend to show you. And the calculations that they've all developed are for a normal market. Now, in this market, if you go and look at all the different indices, they've now completely gone haywire, all saying different things. Because the timing is all weird.
But they're not saying
and
different things.
They are.
They're not. They're all saying the same things.
They're
That
not.
house
They're not
prices
at all.
aren't dropping.
Sometimes Halifax is up and Nationwide says down. The
But
timing
they're
is all
minimal.
different.
Yeah, I was going to say
But they're all
minimal.
broadly
The
the
point
same.
is, okay, so if you have, I've done this experiment on a spreadsheet which I've published that anyone can check, right? I've taken 8 houses, just to prove the point, 8 houses. 7 of them, all 8 of them sell in year 1. A year later, they all sell again. 7 of them, the prices dropped by 5%, but the 8th one went for a lot higher. Average prices went up.
But that's because it's a small data set.
No, the principle is the same, because you can take a large data set across the whole country. And what we do know is there's been an uptick in downsizing, people downsizing. So there's been a larger than typical, by proportion, of number of transactions at the higher price ranges, and smaller than typical at the lower price ranges.
So that isn't
which
true.
causes
We've got more first-time buyers now than Britain's
we're
ever
not. Sorry,
had.
sorry.
And they're buying
No,
at
we
a lower
don't.
end. They're skewing
Mortgage
everything.
approval figures are
They're skewing
way
everything
low.
in any event.
Russell, this is
is
demonstrably
based
wrong.
on, no, there are more first-time
Which Russell?
buyers now. There are more. This is a matter of fact. There are more first-time buyers now than there have ever been as a percentage of total buyers. Literally this week, that number came out from government,
30%,
300,000. So therefore,
Do you know
first-time
why? As a
buyers,
proportion?
hang on,
Because overall
first-time
transaction volume's
buyers
down.
aren't buying at £1 million or £2 million. They're buying at the lower end of the market. Therefore, your proposition that this is all skewed because there's lots more people at the top end of the market, the opposite is true.
No. The Bank of England shows us that the number of first-time buyer mortgages is at an almost record low.
Not true.
Yes, it does.
Not true.
Sorry, again, we can discover. We can prove this
No,
afterwards.
first-time buyer mortgages or first-time buyers?
First-time buyer mortgages.
So you're suggesting there's a massive difference between first-time buyers that buy with and without a mortgage? There isn't.
No, I'm not.
Because
I'm not saying that
they
at
don't
all.
have cash, so they're clearly buying mortgages.
So
I'm
you can look at
gonna-
the mortgage numbers, and you can also look. So the price falls at higher levels. Even asking prices, as Rightmove shows, what they call top of the ladder prices,
Hang on, Charlie.
are
Look,
falling.
what you're suggesting, you're suggesting that the data now is unreliable, but the data that perhaps it's comparing to from 2 or 3 years ago wasn't unreliable. It seems to me,
No, I'm not saying
I would
that.
suggest that what you're doing is when the data comes out that suits you, you rely on it and you're happy with it at face value. When data comes out that doesn't support your argument, then you want to reinterpret it, then you want to skew it, then you want to
I haven't changed
re-kick
anything,
it
except my
to say,
timing.
well, actually, if the doors are red and if it's a Tuesday or if it's a month with more than 30 days in it, well, then the data is different because I decide, better than the statisticians at the ONS and Halifax and Nationwide, that you know best about the way that they cut
It's
their
not about
data.
knowing best. It's about questions that they won't answer.
Such as?
Right? So the Bank of England has showed us that mortgage overall net lending is the lowest it's ever been since records began. Right? Net mortgage lending is shrinking, and it's never ever
That's
done
got nothing
that.
to do with prices.
You actually think that net mortgage lending has nothing to do with prices?
Yeah.
Okay. Even
Yeah.
though that there's
because
a
it's relative between
35
relative,
year.
yeah. Because demand is
No.
relative to sales. If
Russell,
sales drop,
you haven't done
and
your
buyers,
research.
No, hang on. I don't need to do any
You
research.
do,
I'm looking
because you're just
at the
plucking shit
data.
out of the
No,
air
no, no,
now.
No, the shit
There
I'm
is a
plucking out the air,
direct
Charlie, is from the
correlation
Nationwide
between
Building
mortgage
Society,
lending and
the
prices.
Halifax, and also from the ONS. All you can do is sit there and reinterpret
If you don't
data
let
in
me
a
finish,
skewed
you
way.
win.
I'm looking at
Russell,
actual
if you don't let me
data.
finish, then you
Actual
win. I
data.
give up. I'll just stop now.
I'm going to bring it back for
Well,
our
let me
audience
finish.
rather than the two of you just carrying on with your debate. For our audience on the Property Pulse podcast, we wanted to know the true pulse of the property market. And it feels to me out there from the agents we're talking to and in the recruitment business, in all those agents we're chatting to, the market is probably the most buoyant it's been in the last 18 months.
Since COVID.
Yeah, since
So
COVID.
just this
definitely.
morning, there was an agent that put out the fact that he Rightmove's telling him, his Rightmove back office telling him he's number one. He said, if I'm number one, I don't know what
An
the other
agent.
agents are
That's
doing.
anecdotal. That's not
No,
data.
no,
It's one
sorry.
agent.
But the market-
Rightmove, listen,
One agent.
you didn't listen to what I said. Rightmove, he screenshotted it. And he said, if I'm number one for new instructions, sales, and whatever the other thing is.
I saw it. He
Right.
said, if I'm
If
number
I'm number
one,
what the hell
then
are the
I
other
pity
agents
all the other
doing?
agents.
It's
That's
very-
one
so-
agent's anecdotal
So
proclamation.
what I have agents telling me privately is, we cannot say publicly what we think is happening because our clients won't want us to say that.
But there's a difference between
And
transactions
privately,
and
they're saying-
price. Charlie, you can't conflate. There's a link,
Yes,
but
they are
there
different
is not.
discussions.
There is not an intangible
I
link between
still
price
haven't
and
been able to answer your
transactions.
question because Russell won't stop interrupting me.
Well, we're going to have to call this soon. We'll have to come back for a part two because
I think
I
look,
haven't
we
had- I
should
haven't
let the
been able to
audience
finish the answer.
No, we
So-
should let the
so-
audience decide in the comments who's right, who's
Who's
wrong.
right.
I
Well,
have
but
not
I'm-
been able to finish my answer, Russell,
as we-
and you're
You're
smiling
skewing,
like
am,
you've
because
won-
it's mumbo
No.
jumbo.
Charlie,
it's rubbish.
And Russell, we always give our guest an opportunity to put their final point across. Why will the best agent help agents to value correctly, to deal with the marketplace they want to deal with, and give vendors that transparency that you crave? And then how do you link that same point to a 45% house price drop?
35%.
35%. It might
So-
change by the time this goes out, but 35% house price drop.
The answer to the first part of the question, how does Best Agent help agents, is by removing the barrier to entry for access to the lead market for those who've got the biggest pockets. Right? At the moment, corporate agents pay the biggest amount but the smallest cost per lead because of the volume discounts they get. And that gives them this horrible unfair advantage. They just go all in on prop tech at a lead gen at lower prices than small agents pay, and it works. Right? Not because they're better agents or they get better results. They just blunderbuss the market. They carpet bomb the market. And small good agents don't even get a phone call because of that. Okay? So the way the Best Agent works is there is no option for a corporate to buy an advantage. Every branch of a corporate is treated the same as every individual independent branch. We've had corporate buying people contact us and say, can we arrange our corporate discount, please? No, there isn't one. A lead costs the same, whoever you are. Oh, well, then we don't. Fine. It's up to you if you don't want the leads, right? Because without that, we don't solve the problem. Right? This totally levels the playing field and stops the people with the biggest budgets for lead gen prop tech, who are crap agents, being able to get all the initial inquiries. Right? That's that. So that's
Yep.
first part of the question. I've always, from the beginning, wanted to help make moving home easier. So just helping agents make their businesses more competitive, that's good for agents, doesn't necessarily help movers. I want to help movers actually understand how to tell the difference between a good agent and a bad agent, which is very, very difficult. And I want to try to minimize the number of people. This is a very personal story for me, right? I lost somebody close to me who, because of negative equity, back in the 90s, right? I've seen what it can do to people. So I always say, buy now. If there's a home you like, you can afford, and you're confident you keep up repayments on it, just don't overpay. Because if you overpay, which a lot of people are led to do. I mean, no one in the industry goes, oh, don't offer that much, pay less, right? Everyone's always pay more, especially the new builders, right? And there are people who go into buying a house that don't realise that 2, 3, 5 years from now, they're going to find themselves absolutely stuffed. And all I want to do to people is say, be aware of what could happen and what that could mean for you before you sign on the dotted line. Just prepare for the worst
Yeah, but Charlie,
and hope
you're
for the
not
best.
saying be prepared for what might happen. You're
Sorry, I
telling
thought I got the
people.
last word here.
Yeah, no, but you're telling. No, I have to correct you.
gotta-
You're
I-
telling
Russell,
people that house
I
prices are
am
going to drop
saying-
35%. It's dangerous.
I'm not saying house prices
It's
are going
dangerous.
to drop 35%.
You are. That's
no,
what
I'm
you
not,
said.
I'm not.
It's
I've said,
dangerous.
Oh, leave it there.
I haven't.
You haven't said house prices are going to drop 35%.
I've
He
said
has.
I
Not today,
I'm
but on many, many
I haven't
occasions
said they are
previously.
going to, Russell.
recorrected
You're putting
you.
words in my mouth. I've said that's what I'm
Do you want to
expecting,
see the screenshot?
and I could be wrong.
Do you want to see the screenshot?
I'm expecting it, but
You
it
told
could
the
be wrong.
Daily Mail a few months ago house prices will drop peak to trough 35%. That's what
No,
you said.
I said I
Now you're
expect it, not
backtracking.
they will. No, I've never said they will.
Yes, you
I
have.
have never. That's why I record every interview I'm in, because I get misquoted.
Yeah.
Did the Daily Mail misquote me? Probably.
I'll put this on the podcast as evidence of what I'm saying.
No, Russell.
This is what you told the Daily Mail,
No.
and this is money.
What they printed and what I told them.
If Best Agent is going to be great for the consumer, it's going to be great for a buyer, it's going to be great for a
Honest
seller
agents.
and honest agents, then that's going to be a good thing overall. It's been a fascinating debate to sit between.
Unfinished.
Unfinished, yeah. Well, part
We'll
two
do a part two.
could definitely came back. I'm going to piece together what I've learned from this, other than how to challenge each other and talk over each other in some ways. But you've both got very, very compelling reasons for why you're passionate about A, your vision for where house prices are going, and B, your vision for where house price is going. But we're going to need to call it there on time. Charlie, thank you so much. I wanted to get onto your flying. I wanted to get onto your vision for a business, the aviate, navigate and communicate, which I thought was fascinating. But we will hold that for the next episode. So just for me to say thank you very much. It's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Thanks very much for having me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure.